How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, are you kidding? Thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate it. I watched the special. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm going to give the audience a deep tease and just say the ending, hysterical. So now they have to stay to the end. They can't just casually watch it, you
They
know?
can't bail out. No, I like that. That's actually somebody told me, like in today's world of metrics and stuff, that's one of the things they study
Oh,
is do people A, did they turn it on, and B, did they stay to the end?
yeah.
So I didn't realize that was a thing.
Well, that's kind of interesting because, like, as you heard, I don't know when you heard that in the course of coming up with this special or whatever, but in the good old days, you could sell DVDs, you could sell albums, and you have no idea if people listen to it, if it just sits on the shelf or whatever. So, have you changed the way that you do stand-up specials with respect to analytics?
Not the way I do them. It's funny because early in my career, I had older comics that would mentor me and go out of their way to help me, and so that's always been a thing. Well, not always, but it's been a thing I've enjoyed at this point in my career. Is I love helping young comics. That being said, I will say to them, the way I made most of my money was selling comedy albums and DVDs. The thing that I'm most proud of is somebody told me one time, they said, you've sold more comedy records than anybody in history. And my wife said, well, you'll always have that record because nobody buys comedy records anymore. And so the way that I did it 30 years ago is not even a viable option now. Nobody buys records. Nobody buys DVDs. And so I tell young comics, I can help you write, I can help you put an act together. But if I was starting now, I'd have no idea how to make a living because back then I think it was easier to separate yourself from the crowd in that for me, like the first time I did Johnny Carson, literally the next week I got a Showtime special. A week later, wow. I'm having Caesar's Palace call going, do you want a headline? For no other reason than that Johnny Carson called me over he liked me so much, he called me to the couch. Now, everybody has access to social media, but I think it's harder to kind of separate yourself from the crowd, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and in a sense, everybody can also find their own crowd. And there's someone who's super famous walking down a street somewhere, but if they're outside of their region or their niche or whatever, no one could know who they are, which
absolutely,
I suppose is kind of nice because that celebrity thing, which, I mean, I guess I'm more so asking, is it tough going out and about, or did it become tough for you to just be a normal person at any point?
You kind of, my trajectory, it was always going up, but it was slow and steady. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't like something was just dumped on me all at one time. So I had a chance to get used to it. There does become a time when you realize you used to drive up to the mall and you didn't think about it. You just got out and went in and bought tennis shoes. Yeah. Now there's that moment when you realize, oh, I'm about to go into there. I'm probably going to take 15 pictures while I buy these shoes. But it just becomes normal. It just becomes part of your life. And, anytime my kids or somebody would get frustrated with it, I said, no, you can't play it both ways. Because the good thing is if we show up at a restaurant, we get a table, Right. So, but you just get used to it. It's like when COVID hit, Charlie, it was so weird because you go in the grocery and you got to wear a mask and all of a sudden nobody knew who I was. And so for like 2 years, I was like, I didn't even have to think about it. It's like you put the mask on and nobody stopped me, and
you're one of everyone else.
Yeah. And so you're like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot what this was like, not to have that second where you think, and I don't ever mind it. I mean, I never mind taking a picture. You know, in the old days, it was an autograph. And I think the autograph was proof, hey, I met this person. Well, it's been totally, nobody asks for an autograph now. Everybody wants a picture. But it is weird, like if you're in an airport and you see somebody across the road trying to like,
I know.
and I just look at him and I go, you're terrible at this. You're terrible. Come over here. Let's do a selfie and take the picture. You'll be happy with it. You know, you're not looking up my nose, you know, from across the room. But I mean, I don't ever mind. I mean, it's because of these people that I don't have to pick up heavy stuff for a living.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
I get to be funny. So yeah,
in a way, does it because comedy, and especially a lot of your comedy, is about sort of the normal things that go on. Is it tough connecting with the normal things when you reach that sort of celebrity status? And by that, I don't mean, are you like, have you gotten such a big head that you can no longer connect? But I mean, like when you go to the store, it's now a different experience than the normal person has at the grocery store.
Well, but I kind of go to the same store. So, you know, the first time you go, you take 30 pictures, and the next time it's 25. And then now it's just, you walk in and it's like, hey, Jeff, you know.
Smart.
So,
yeah.
But it was, I remember very early on, like, I think it was Eddie Murphy's maybe third special, but he was doing material about his limo driver was in a bad mood or whatever. And I remember even then thinking, well, people can't identify with that. You know, my mother's never been in a limo.
Right.
And so it was always important for me to just have a normal life. And so I took my kids to school. I go to Home Depot. I fix my own stuff when it breaks, because to me, not only did I want for my kids to have as much normalcy as they could have in their life, I'm like, this is the stuff I talk about, you know, and I can't talk about it if I don't go do it.
Right.
And, you know, I'd volunteer to open car doors at school and, you know, whatever. I'd take my kids to soccer practice or whatever, you know, because I wanted to have that normal life.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I mean, that's you just mentioned 2 bits right there. There's a whole bit on opening the car doors. Not that that's your motivation, but that's where my brain goes.
I'll tell you a very funny story that I never told on stage, but I'm opening car doors, and I would tell people, you know, because everybody that has little kids, your car is just always trashed, and your spouse is like, you got to clean out the car. It's a mess. Yeah. And I said, everyone should have to open car doors at school, because it's kind of like when you think your family's crazy. I always told people, you need to go to the fair once a year just to feel better about your own family. It's kind of the same thing with opening car doors at school, because you're opening these car doors and you're going, hell, I thought my car was trash. Look at this. And so one morning I opened the door and the kids are scrambling out of the back, and the mom had like the floorboard full of laundry. I guess it was laundry day or whatever. And as the kids are getting out of the car, one of them snags a red bra off the pile with his foot, and it lands right on my foot. So the mom's looking up the seat. I've got her bra laying right on top of my shoe. I look at her, she looked at me, and I just kicked it back into the back seat and shut the door, you know.
That is a gentleman move right there.
Yeah, a little intimate moment between the two of us, and then
oh, that's great. When it comes to, so you grew up in Atlanta, and what was the, right? You were born and raised in Atlanta, that area? Little
town just south of Atlanta called Hateville, which, looking back, it was like Mayberry. I mean, we literally walked to school. I would pass the fire station where my granddaddy was a fireman, though I don't ever remember us having one fire the entire time I grew up. It was where Chick-fil-A started. It was where the very first Chick-fil-A restaurant was.
Wow. Fun fact.
And there was a Ford plant there. And so and it was near the airport. So everybody either worked for Delta or Ford, you know. Yeah. And, but it was just a a great little town, and you played every sport. You played for the recreation center baseball, and then when that was over, you played recreation center football, and then rec basketball.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And looking back, it was just kind of a, hell, my mom didn't know where we were. There was a train track through the middle of town, and they would load it up with cars from the Ford plant. But as they loaded it up, it would just sit there and it would block half the town, And so as a kid, if I was like riding my bike and I wanted to go to the ball field, I had to get over the railroad tracks. If the train was sitting there, I learned I would just get down and I would grab the handlebars of my bike and I would crawl under the train and pull it, to get to the other side and go. And my mom never knew that till I was grown. And one day I was talking about crawling under the train with my bike, and my mother's like, "Oh my God, y'all crawled under the train?" And I'm like, "Only about 5,000 times, Mom."
That's the good rush you need. That's the adrenaline that gets you ready for soccer practice.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know who designed towns, but we got a town here where my dad's from, Fond du Lac, and even now there's a train that will just block up the entire half of the deal.
And even as a kid, I'm thinking, why would you put the train track right through the middle of town, right?
Especially a train that has a tendency to just stop.
Yeah. Oh, because it would take hours to load the cars on, from the Ford plant. And so it would stop, and then it would inch forward, and, and it was, so if it started moving, it wasn't moving fast. There were a couple of times I was under it and it'd kind of shake, and you're like, oh crap,
You got a warning. You got enough of a warning.
Yeah, you got a little warning. Sure.
Yeah. When was sort of the first time you found yourself saying comedy, that this is what I'm going to do?
I was fascinated by it as a kid. I remember, like, my mom would always watch The Tonight Show. She was a night owl. And so my door would be cracked open just a little bit in the bedroom, but I could hear it. I was never interested in the actors or the musician. But if it was a comedian, I would get out of bed and I would go look through, where the hinges were. I could look through there and see the TV. And I remember watching Flip Wilson and, all Bob Hope and all those. Yeah. I was just fascinated. And then, so as I got a little older, I'd save up my money and I would buy comedy records, like, Bob Newhart or whatever. I would just memorize them and I'd go to school and do them. And, just because it was fun to make people laugh. And, when I really learned I could do it on my own, one year, I think I was probably maybe 10, I got a tape recorder for Christmas. And the very first thing I recorded an alarm clock going off and me going, and recorded myself walking. And I walk into the bathroom. Well, I had pre-prepared 2-gallon milk jugs of water. And I lift the toilet seat up and I start slowly emptying the first one into the toilet like somebody's peeing. And at first people are like kind of snickering. Well, when it goes on for 5 minutes, they're just gut laughing. And then you get to the end of the first jug and I'm like, what? And you think it's over. Then I pick up the second jug and I start with it. And I remember that my relatives would sit around and laugh at that. And I went, this is like having a superpower.
Yeah. I
can make people laugh. As a kid, I didn't know you could do it for a living, probably like you. Mm-hmm. It was a way that people liked you. You made people laugh. You were the funny kid. And so, like a lot of people, I get out of high school. I have no idea what I want to do for a living. I'm working in a grocery store, going to college, living at home because I had no money, flunk out of college. I think one of my dad's friends felt bad for me and he got me a job working dispatch at IBM. And I was the guy, every workplace has this person, male or female, that's in the break room making everybody laugh. I'd be the guy in the break room doing the impersonation of the boss, and you'd turn around and the boss would be standing in the door. That was me. But I worked with a bunch of guys that used to go to the local comedy club, and they kept going, Foxworthy, you're funnier than these people. You need to try this. And I guess I didn't do it fast enough. So they entered me in a contest, not an amateur night, a contest called the Great Southeastern Laugh Off for working comics. And I'm like, oh, crap. And I went home and I wrote like 5 minutes about my family. And I won the contest. My first night on stage, I won. And I was a nervous wreck, but I remember thinking a minute into it, I'm like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. And I quit my job at IBM. My mother, her first thing when I told her I quit my job, she's like, are you on the dope? Whatever the dope, the dope, whatever the dope is. And I said, no. I said, I think I can do this. I love it. I think I can do this. And literally 5 years later, I'm on Johnny Carson. And the same mother is going, you wasted all those years at IBM. And I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, Mom, So, yeah.
And did I hear that night that you did that you essentially committed your life to comedy, you also met your wife?
Met my wife was acting, and she had just done a thing with a comedian. And so a bunch of people from that show came down to root for this guy who was also in the contest. And so when I came off stage, she came up to me and went, wow, you're really funny. And I was so nervous that I spilled my drink literally right down the front of her sweater and her pants.
What kind of a drink was it? Was it a Bloody Mary?
No, I think it was a 7 and 7 back then. The official redneck cocktail.
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I said, now you'll never go out with me. And she laughed and she goes, you didn't even ask me. And that was a Tuesday, and we went out on a Saturday, and I moved in with her on a Monday, and that was 38 years ago.
Holy smokes. Yeah. That is very much so against the odds. I'm not
there's no way it should have worked. No. Just no way. But she was the only person in my life, because she was creative and she was acting. She was the only person that was saying to me, you should quit your job. She said, you're so creative, and if you don't do something creative, you're going to have a miserable life. Everybody else was going, you can't quit IBM to go be a comic, and she was the one person breathing that into me. And she would sit in the back of the room with a notepad, and she'd go, this worked good. This, you need to, that's not funny. Stop doing that. And she eventually quit acting and took a job selling milk so we didn't starve to death. Because that first year I found the little, calendar books. I found that one day cleaning out my drawer from my first year on the road. I did 406 shows. I made $8,300.
Wow.
For the year.
Wow. I'm bad at division, but that doesn't sound like a lot of money per night.
I think it's like $20 a show.
Wow.
But so we would have starved to death if she hadn't have done that. But she just believed in me. She's like, you can do this. You can, it was her, because I'd gotten to the point even 4 or 5 years later where I was headlining all over the country, but I couldn't get on TV. I would send tapes to the Tonight Show and they wouldn't even open them. They just mail them back. And she said, it's because you live in Smyrna, Georgia, which was a suburb. She said, if we don't go to LA, you're never going to know if you could do this or not. And we were like the Clampetts. We loaded up a U-Haul and moved to LA. And I think we'd been there 2 weeks. And I was doing a set in the Improv. And the talent coordinator from the Tonight Show was in the audience. And he followed me out into the lobby. And he said, how come you haven't done the Tonight Show? And I said, because you don't open my tapes, you just mail them back. And 2 weeks later, I was on the Tonight Show.
That's such a crazy story. And also your wife, like what she's saying about that creative energy, it's got to go somewhere otherwise. And you always, I feel like, meet those people who are super creative, but like they've got this underlying sadness or discontent, because it's not being sort of fulfilled. And your wife did she just decide like for herself, because she's an actor, right? And so did she feel that way about herself as well, like where she should keep acting, or did she not have the same passion for acting as you had for comedy?
I don't think she had the same passion. I mean, she was still doing things in Atlanta, which wasn't as big of a filming place as it is now. But when we moved to LA, she did parts on things and all, but she didn't love it like I did stand up. Like, she hated the audition process. She hated somebody going, the space between your nose and your lip is too big,
Right.
and I was just kind of determined. I was just hell bent on I was going to get good at this, and so eventually she just kind of went away from it, and vicariously, she still loves film and stuff, but she's like, I'd rather be a mom.
Yeah. And where was your dad? You told me that your mom was like, you know, are you on the dope? What'd your dad say when you told him you were going to do comedy?
Well, see, it was my parents. My dad left early. They got divorced early in life. They were so total opposites. My mom would go to church 5 days a week and sing in the choir. And my dad ended up being married 6 times and had 1,000 girlfriends. And he drank and smoked and told dirty jokes and was the life. And you just look at them and go, why did y'all ever marry each other? But my dad, he was working at IBM, and he grew up on a farm. So I think for him, that was kind of the way out from the farm. But I remember it just wasn't my thing. I just was not happy there, and I didn't, everybody in my family worked. We were all blue collar people. Nobody was in show business,
right?
But I was just always creative. I always drew. I always painted. I always wrote. And to this day, even when COVID hit and I couldn't go on stage, I invented 4 games. I'm painting pictures for my grandson's room. I was so bored, I pulled out a mullet wig and was doing Ricky Lee Bagley horoscopes on YouTube. And my wife says, if you're not creating something, you just go crazy.
That's it. I feel that same thing. Like if I don't have, like, let's say I put a video up or something and it doesn't do well, like my brain will just kind of like eat itself about the video of doing bad until I leave it there and say, okay, focus on the next one. There's just this crazy shift that goes on. And it's like over the years, I've just gotten to on to the next thing. Cause it's like, if I'm not being creative, I'm just pretty much destroying something in my life. You know what I mean?
Do you find it's almost like, it's like a hyper focus thing? Like one of the games that I invented was Relative Insanity, which you and I played.
Very fun game. That's where we met.
Yeah. But so I thought, all right, I need to come up with 500 punchlines, just things that sound funny. They don't have a setup. So Charlie, I pull out a notepad and I'm literally like for days, just writing that, until that's finished. And then it's, like one of the things I do for fun is I look for like Native American artifacts. And I find like a hammerstone, like they used to have a club and they would take like pine sap and they'd put a stone in it, but it was like a war club. So I find the stone, obviously through the thousands of years, the wood has, it's gone, it's evaporated or whatever. And I'm like, well, I've got the stone, I'll create a war club. And I'm out there in the backyard whittling. Well, what do I know about making a club? But I'm whittling on a piece of, maple, trying to make and so I'm always doing, and then I'm hyper focused on that for 3 days,
Yeah.
So,
well, it's also like this energy it creates. Like if there's a joke I'm excited about or a sketch I'm excited about, it's kind of like a drug, I guess. Like I keep reading it and doing it or whatever. And that fuels me almost sometimes through another thing that I have to do that I don't want to do. You know what I mean? Like getting back to some, just going through emails or whatever. But it's almost like coffee that it keeps me going. And I don't know what it is, but it's a great feeling.
I really think we're adrenaline junkies.
Yeah.
You know, it's that laugh. It's that making people happy for a moment. That's our adrenaline.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I'm very thankful that was my life, because I mean, and I've always worked hard. I mean, whether writing's not fun. Writers are writers, not because we want to be writers. We're writers because we have to do it. You know, and I'm still, after all these years, I hate the blank page. I've got to get one thing down, and then it's like starting the motor and you can go. But so I always worked hard at it. But even at my age, I'm like, crap, I cheated life. I never had to get a real job. You know, I just got to create stuff, and thank God it worked.
Right.
And I'm not greeting people at Walmart, which I would do. And I like people, you know, but thankfully I didn't have to do that.
Yeah. It's super lucky to have it happen, because so many people have that creative bug, have that thing we're talking about, and then they never hit their break, either through no fault of their own. But
yeah, you got the walleye net up there on the wall behind you.
Yeah, actually that's my great Uncle Heine's net. And let me bring it down here. It's actually a fly fishing net. But I mean, look at that. That's a wood. It's
a beauty, man.
It is cool. It's very cool.
And the thing that's cool about it is, you know, how many times he had that thing in his hand.
Oh, yeah.
Out there, you know, scooping them up with it.
And if you tried to do it now, this thing would probably just disintegrate. You know?
Yeah.
By the way, do you ever fly fish?
I've only done it a few times, but I loved it.
Oh, yeah, me too. It's so cool. I mean, I don't quite fit the fly fisher fold, you know, like I go out with my buddy who's one of those snobby fly fishers. He said he wasn't, but we got like 5 minutes into fly fishing and he was giving me all sorts of crap about wanting to use a spinnerbait. And so I knew at that point that he was it.
Well, you know? and even then, like when you hook one, they don't want you to use the reel.
I know. It's so counterintuitive. Yeah. What do you call it? Yeah. Stripping.
Yeah. Strip the line.
Yeah.
But see, I'm kind of like, because like I've been a hunter my whole life. Well, then about 25 years ago, I became a bow hunter.
Oh,
and it's a little bit the same. It's a little bit of the same snobbery. Is, you know, somebody's like, shot this elk with a rifle. I'm like, yeah, well, good for you. I shot mine with a bow. I stalked him all day long and shot him with a bow. Yeah.
Now, and the next level there is the recurve bow, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. He looks at me with a compound and like, oh, yeah. Good for you.
I found my dad's recurve and I fixed it up or got it all strung up and whatnot. And I went to this recurve range and I felt like I was fly fishing again, getting all the side eyes, you know. Apparently my form's off, using the wrong arrows, all the, plastic, little plastic feathers on it. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, I always thought with the fly fishing deal, though, there's so many, if you go to a Goodwill, there are always used racquetball rackets. And I feel like someone's missing out. They should string up those racquetball rackets with a net and then sell racquetball fly fishing nets. And they'd make a killing. Upcycled fly fishing nets with an old racquetball racket.
Hey, look, you're creative.
Yeah, I know. I can't. Oh, hey, I wanted to tell you this because I know you collect arrowheads, right?
Yes. I love to look for them. Yeah. I
was out in Utah. I was doing a show out there at Wise Guys. And so I was out, hiking around. And then I was like, oh, man, I'm gonna find an arrowhead out here. And I found a stone that looked like an arrowhead, and I showed it to my buddy. He's like, "You're an idiot. That's not even close." And but then the next day, I was doing a show in Colorado, and a fan brought me an arrowhead. I want to show you it because I want to see. And I left it at my buddy's house, but I do have a picture of it. So he's still in Colorado. He's going to send it to me, though. Here we go. So what can you tell me about that sucker right there? Can you see that?
Oh, buddy, that's a beauty. It looks like a bird point. It's smaller. The true arrowhead. See, back in the day.
Oh, is that not an arrowhead?
That is an arrowhead.
Oh, okay.
It looks like a big sandy, and if it is, it's probably 8,000 to 10,000 years old.
Wow, isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
What'd you say? A bird point? Is that meant? It's going for bird?
They used to use hunting? They used what was called an atlatl for years, which was. It had like a peg and it was a stick, and you would like have a notch on the end of like a small spear, and you'd throw it.
Yeah.
And they did that for thousands of years. And then the most recent, like 3,500 years ago, they went to the actual bow and arrow. And so those big ones you see were too heavy for an arrow. So they did smaller ones like that. And they're just referred to as bird points, but they were small so they wouldn't mess up the trajectory of that stick flying through the air.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's a later arrowhead.
All right.
Are we going into the arrowhead vault right now? Oh, look at that.
Like, there's some that I found, but like this would be too big to be on an arrow.
Yeah.
So it would be hafted to a stick, and it might be a knife or it might be a spear. But, most of those would be too big to be an arrowhead. That's my war club that I carved out and made from that stone.
That's so cool. You did a good job with that. You were making it. Did you watch a YouTube video to figure out how to do that?
I did. You can watch a YouTube video to see how to do everything. But yeah, like I've got cases where I dug them out of a cave, like a rock overhang, where you could see smoke. Like burnt marks on the ceiling. And it's like over a creek. And so you knew people were living there. And I pulled some out of there that are like 10,000 years old.
Wow. Now, what is the, do you have a connection with any of the tribes where you do this, or do they take you out on that, or how does that work?
No, not really. I play a lot of casinos on reservations, but I just have a fascination with the first Americans because, you think about it, we've been here, 300-400 years? They've been here for 12,000 years before that. I always say when it's Columbus Day, I said, let's celebrate the guy that discovered America and the 100 million people living here already. That'd be like me discovering New York next week. So I just have a fascination because, and I would never disturb a grave or anything like that. But when you're finding these tools, that was like somebody's knife or somebody's hammer or whatever. Yeah. So they weren't creating them to be works of art. They were creating them to survive. Mm-hmm. But, the pyramids are 3,000 years old. These things are 3 times older than the pyramid.
That's incredible.
And so when you touch it, you're like, I'm the first human to touch this in 10,000 years. This was some dude's knife. He sat there and made it, Yeah. And I'm fascinated by this. They were, they knew how to treat the land. They knew how to use the land to survive. They didn't abuse it and rape it like we do. And they're just fascinating people.
Yeah. And we're like the hot spots to go do it. Like do you go on vacation specifically to look for this stuff?
Dude, I'm going this weekend.
Are you? Where are you going?
I'm going to Arkansas because I have some friends out there that they have beautiful arrowheads, but their deer are crappy. Their deer are little. Well, I have a farm in Georgia where I have giant deer. And so we have a deal is me and my buddy go out there and hunt arrowheads once a year. Then in the fall, they come to my place and I let them shoot deer, So
that's cool.
Everybody's happy.
Yeah. I like that.
But I go all over the country looking for them.
And is it somewhere like you have to find a cave of some sort, or is it just walking around and just keeping your eyes open?
You think they're almost always close to water. They had to have water every day. So they're almost all camps or settlements were near a river or a creek or something, and you'll have like in creeks where over the years with the flooding, the walls have eroded and you'll find them like down in the creeks and all. Some places people have a field next to a creek or a river and they plow it. And then after it rains on it, you can go out there and you can find them there. But they're almost always near water. Yeah.
And like, how hard is it to find one, would you say? Like, do you go on trips where you find none, or do you kind of know hot spots and you'll probably get out there with one?
Well, I mean, always my goal is to find 4 unbroken ones a day.
Wow.
And there's some days that I have found 30, and there's some days I've found none. But my goal, I just pick like a goal of 4. And the truth is you'll find probably 10 broken ones to every whole one that you find. Yeah. Because they were made, and if they were using it for a knife, the rock would snap and they'd throw it away and make another one. And so, but yeah, I mean, I've been lucky. I found axe heads. I found a pipe that was made out of stone.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's cool. And I like what, you're saying about kind of going back. It's almost like a time capsule of a time that we can learn from, as we constantly sort of destroy this planet, of just being whole with what you have and imagining life. If you didn't need, the next thing, the next phone, the next car, if you could make do with, what you have and almost live in symmetry with the planet as opposed to just, overtaking it.
And I think that's what they did. I don't think everybody in a village made arrowheads, but I think there was probably a few women or men that were really good at it. And somebody else said, hey, you make me some arrowheads and I'll give you 2 rabbits, and you can eat and I can hunt. And probably like us, people were better at certain things than others, but I think they did live much more in symmetry than we did. It's even from my childhood, you didn't buy a new TV just because a better TV came out. You watched your TV until it died. Mm-hmm. Then you got another. And now we live in an age where we'll get rid of a phone that's working perfectly well because the next one came out.
Or because it's green. I saw a commercial for the Apple iPhone and nothing they were advertising except the fact that it's green. And I was like, and yet we just put a case over it. I couldn't tell you what color my iPhone is.
No, I couldn't either. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a different way, one that, we're really going to have no choice but to learn from as we keep buying these electronics. The precious metals go, you can't mine forever and drill forever. So we'll figure it out. Or we won't. And then,
or we won't, and we'll go the way of the buffalo, right? Yeah.
Let's get back into comedy a little bit, although that was a very fun tangent. I'm glad we could talk about that. I create, I mean, I make a lot of videos, and there's always one video that I'm like, you know what? That was way better than any of the views it got or any of the recognition that it should have got, but I love it to death. Do you have a video that you made or maybe a special that you put out that you don't think enough people saw or didn't get the sort of recognition for the amount that you love it?
That's such a great question.
Oh, thanks.
It's funny. I don't know how you feel. Like, I hate watching myself. Like my daughter said to me last night, "Are you going to watch the special?" I went, "Oh, hell no." No, I hate the way I sound. I hate the way I look,
That's why your first audio recording was you yawning and just a water going into a toilet. Yeah. You probably did one before that where you were talking in it. And you were like, no.
Oh, I used to do the Tonight Show, and, you'd film it like at 5 p.m, and then we'd go have dinner and we'd come home. And my wife would watch it, and when they introduced me, I would get up off the couch and leave the room.
You never saw it?
Now I'd be standing around the corner, and she'd go, "Come back in here. It's good. It's good." And I'm like, oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
But there, I'll tell you a funny story. So I was doing a corporate show one night. You have to be clean to do corporate shows. Yeah. And Ron White was opening for me. And so he was meeting me. I was renting a plane and flying out and doing it and coming back. And this very rarely happens, but they had asked me to do 2 bits that were on my first CD I ever did. And I couldn't really remember them clearly. So on the way to the airport, I put the CD in the truck, in the CD player, and I'm listening to it. And I pull up at the airport, and Ron's sitting on a bench out front smoking a cigarette. And I said, Tater, I said, they wanted me to do 2 bits off of my first album, and I had to go back and listen to it. I said, there's some funny stuff on this album. And Ron takes a cigarette and he goes, thus the Learjet. But I had
a philosopher.
My brain only holds so much. And so through the years, I've done like 10 specials and 10 albums and 50 to. And so when I'm done with something, I flush it and I'm on to the next thing. And so I don't remember that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, people will come up and say, hey, can you tell the thing about when you saw your grandmother naked? And I'm like, yeah, how did that start?
Yeah.
Because my brain can only hold so much at one time.
Yeah.
Well, you ever do that? You go back and watch something old and you go, crap, that was funny.
Yeah. Well, I did it recently with a bit because I used to do this. We got Fleet Farm up here and we got Farm and Fleet, and there is same stores sell the same stuff, but they're named 2 different things. And I had this whole bit on it, and someone shouted out in the crowd, and I was like, oh, that's great. I'll just go into this bit. And I got like into it, and I was like, I forgot all the punchlines. I know there were some good ones in here, but eventually I found one, but I stumbled over everything else that it didn't quite go. So yeah, I totally know. And but even that, it's like remembering just simple like business stuff, like, oh, did I pay that bill? Like those are the things that go first. I need a business manager or something. I think that's what that means. But yeah, it can only hold so much. I mean, we're walking around at any given time with an hour to an hour and a half in our head, which we can pull out like that. So that's my excuse, and I'm sticking with it. So if I forget someone's name that I'm related to, that's just how it goes,
Well, think about like Elton John, who's done 50 albums, and then somebody says, hey, will you play this song off your second album? Yeah. And I would be like, crap, what were the lyrics to?
Yeah.
I can't because I don't remember it.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like in my head, store's an hour and a half. And, I will listen to myself sometimes, like, I'll have it on Sirius 97 and they'll play one of my bits. Charlie, I don't remember talking about that. And so it's like brand new to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh crap, that was pretty funny. Yeah. I forgot about that.
This guy's real good. Yeah. What about videos? Are there videos that you put out? I know you do, YouTube, you do the deer hunt bit. I mean, are there certain things that, never really caught on that you're like, there's still something there. I still very much so believe in that.
Well, like I did 3 incomplete deer hunter things.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
And I would even have friends that would go, my little boys would just get hooked on that and they would just watch that over and over. And, and relatively speaking, not a ton of, I think they sold like 1 million copies, but it wasn't like 10 million or 20 million. And, so most people don't know about it, because it was for that niche thing. Like at the beginning of the interview, you had said there's people that are famous. So like, I know people that have their own hunting shows that if you go with them to the hunting expo, they're like Brad Pitt. People are clamoring, they have to have security. But if you walk with them through the airport, 1 in 500 people knows who they are.
Yeah.
So I can't even remember.
No, you were saying the hunting show.
So like the hunting videos, most of the GP wouldn't know it. But if I went to a hunting convention,
yeah,
then people are like, oh, the incomplete deer hunter, so it's very much a niche thing. But within that niche, it was big.
Yeah. Are you a guy who, when you're walking around and you think of a bit, do you stop the world to write that bit down?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only because I know through experience that I won't remember it. Mm. And so that's my first advice when anybody wants to talk to me about being a comic. I said, write your thoughts down and you write them down as soon as you think them, because so many times I've been thinking something and thought, I'll write it down when I get to the mall. And then you get to the mall and you're like, crap, what was I thinking? I can't remember it. To the point, like I have a pad next to my bed with a pen on it.
Yes.
Because so many times I think of something after I turn the light out and I'm trying to go to sleep, and I'll think of something. And I've literally learned to write in the dark. I'll just reach over there, take the pen, and scribble a few words on the pad in the dark. But it's legible enough. I can read it the next morning. Yeah. I keep a pad on my bathroom counter, because I bet you 70% of the stuff I've ever wrote, I thought of in the shower.
Yep. Shower.
I come out of the shower and I look at my wife and I go, hey, is this funny? And to the point, great story. So one night,
I'm just that the visual of you walking out of the shower and saying, hey, is this funny? This is kind of funny.
It really hurts my feelings when she says yes before I say anything. But like, so one night I got to meet Bruce Springsteen and it was just the two of us, and we're sitting there talking, and I'm fascinated with like the writing process. And I said, how as a 20-year-old, were you able to write lyrics like young girl sitting on the hood of a Dodge drinking warm beer in the soft summer rain? I said, nobody 20 should be able to write that. And he was like, I just wanted to write stuff I wasn't going to be embarrassed singing 30 years down the road. And I said, so where do you write? Where does it come up? And he's like, nah, I write most stuff in the shower. And I was like, oh, I write most stuff in the shower too.
It's crazy though, because what is the shower? That's a time where you have no distractions,
Yes.
I mean, and I feel like these days, I used to do a bit. Speaking of used to do a bit, now I can't remember it, but it's like, think of all the great inventors and like Ben Franklin. If he had social media, would he have ever discovered electricity, or would he have been too busy taking a selfie of, hey, I'm flying a kite in the rain? You know what I mean? And then better pull this down before, or he drops his phone, drops the kite. Electricity's never invented, Yeah. But it's those moments of like, and it's so hard now with having our phone with us all the time, but to just let yourself be bored, because once you're bored, that's where all the magic happens.
That you're exactly right. You have to get rid of the distractions. I think that's what I love about bow hunting is, you're sitting there in a tree and it's dead silent. Mm-hmm. And I always say even if I don't see a deer, I get to kind of dump my brain out and sit there and sort through the garbage and decide what to keep and what to get rid of. Mm. But for a writer, you have to have no distractions. You can't, like for me, I write early in the morning, because once the day starts and once my phone starts ringing, then I'm distracted and I don't do it very well.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you write pen on paper? Do you ever use the notes in your phone?
Well, I'll put thoughts on the notes in the phone, mm-hmm. but I always write, even if I eventually, and I do to save it, I'll put it in the computer. But my whole life, I'm looking over here at this drawer, it's 60 notebooks just full of handwritten.
Yeah.
Because I read somewhere that the act of writing it with your hand, your brain telling your hand, you're looking at the paper and your hand to write it, that you have like an 80% better chance of remembering it than if you type it into a computer. There's something within your brain. And it's like years ago, I did a bit about about them advertising prescription drugs on television. And I said, and then they start listening to the side effects, and the side effects are always 50 times worse than whatever the drug's supposed to cure. And I said, so you see the commercial and it's like, try new Floraflor for itchy, watery eyes. It's Floraflor. Side effects may include nausea, vomiting, water, weight gain, lower back pain, receding hairline, eczema, seborrhea, psoriasis, itching, chafing clothing, liver spots, blood clots, ringworm, excessive body odor. And I would go through like 70 side effects. And people would always say to me, how do you remember that? I have this thing. I see the piece of paper with my handwriting on it, one under the other. I see it. So as I'm saying it, I'm not really remembering it. I'm just reading it off of that piece of paper.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I got to tell you something. So watching your most recent special, when you're talking to your wife in it, and then you're impersonating your wife, I see, in a close-up, I saw your eyes going a little back and forth, and I was like, is he reading this off a because you were doing it so fast and so proficiently. And then, of course, you must have maybe thought that, because as soon as that scene was done, there's a shot of you from the back, and there's obviously nothing there. You're obviously not reading off a teleprompter, but your eyes are going back and forth you are reading.
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the note card, and it's and what I do is I divide it into fours on that thing, because it's not just a word like the side effects. And so I see it in groups of fours, and so I'm literally seeing the note card as I'm going through them.
Because that was such a funny bit too, and you just kept going on and on with it, and just I don't want to give it away for people who haven't seen the special, but it was so funny, and I was like, God, how did he remember all that? Because it was all disconnected, and you had punchlines within it. It was so funny. It was incredible, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why I can do that. You remember Haley Joel Osment from The Sixth Sense?
Yeah.
So he was my son.
You're about to tell me? Oh, he was what?
He was my son when I was doing a sitcom.
Yeah.
And one night we were filming, and they had to rewrite a scene, and it was just he and I, like sitting on the back porch talking. Yeah. And so they rewrote it real quick, and they bring 2 printed pages over, just one copy. And so it's me and this 7-year-old kid sitting side by side reading this paper. And I'm a good memorizer. We read the first page, flip it over, read the second page, and this 7-year-old kid goes, I got it. I'm ready. And I walked over to his dad, and I said, he's read it one time, and he says he's got it. He said he does. He's got a photographic memory.
Oh, wow.
It's cool, but that's a strange little gift.
Yeah, that is cool. I got my first stand-up special coming up that I'm gonna film, and what would you say, as someone who's done so many great specials, what would be your tips on, doing stand-up is one thing, but making a great special is a whole other thing. Do you have any tips for that?
Well, and it's funny because there's no stand-up comedy is as fascinating to me now as it was in 1984. But it's like the muse you can never figure out. Because, and I tell you what I mean, because if you want to be an actor, you go to acting school, you go to acting classes. You want to be a musician, you go to music school. Yeah. There's no stand-up comedy school. Right. There's no, this is how you do it. There's no right or wrong way. So it's the way you learn to be a comic is you hang around with comics. That's how you learn to be a comic. But and I think it's, for all of us, it's different. For me, and I don't know if it was because you had to do it when you were preparing like a Tonight Show set or something, the segues. I want to start a show and go from subject to subject, but you don't realize that I've even changed subjects. Mm-hmm. It's Larry the Cable Guy could give a crap less segues. Larry will start with 5 jokes about Walmart, and then he'll go talk about his mom, and then he'll go talk about his piece of crap truck, and then he'll go back and do more Walmart jokes. Yeah. And I'm watching him going, I would put all the Walmart jokes together and then maybe end on something in the automotive department and segue that into my truck. It was always important for me for it to flow. Well, Larry's a mega successful comic. That's not important for him. It's just important for me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's like you hesitate to give any. Did you give him that advice?
I said to him a couple of times, I said, this is not even a job, but I think I would be good at this. To watch somebody's act and then to put it, to change the order, I think I would be good at that. Of course, there's no demand for that. There's nobody going, can you do that? But it works great for him.
Yeah.
So I'm not right. I'm just different in my approach to it.
Yeah. And for those out there sort of listening who are thinking, we've got a few people who reach out to me saying like, I want to do stand-up. What do I do? And what I always say is advice that I heard someone else say, but it's great. Write 5 facts about yourself and then punchlines after that. Do you have any advice yourself?
Like one of the tricks I'll use, like say I'm working on a bit about cleaning up the house, and maybe the way I do it and the way my wife does it. So I will actually, I'll take a piece of paper and I'll go men like motors, men like, and then on the other side, I'll write household chores, like vacuuming the living room, washing the dishes. And then I start just crossing, like I'll go from motor to washing dishes and from muscles to dusting, and just see if sometimes I can make a funny connection within there that I had never thought of before. Yeah. And I do stuff like that when I get stuck sometimes. I've learned over the years I heard Marshall Childs one time say, you need to get intimate with your material. And so what I've learned through the years, and I will tell comics, is when you're doing the setup, that's the part of stand-up where there's no laugh. That's the work you've got to do to get to the point that you get the laughs. Well, in my early days of stand-up, my bits were 3 minutes long and 5 minutes long. At this point in my career, my bits are 20 minutes long and 30 minutes long, because once I establish what the premise is or the setup, through the years, I've learned, all right, you've done all this work where you're not getting a laugh. So now that you're here, is there a way, instead of just getting 1 laugh or 2, can you keep digging and get 15 or 20 laughs out of this?
Yeah.
So now you're not having to do another setup where there's no laughter. You've arrived at the spot and you're just drilling it to death. And that's just, I think, an experience and maturity thing with it. Because I was telling somebody, I said, I'm working on this bit and I'm trying to hone it down. And they said, how long is it? I said, well, right now it's about 35 minutes, but I'd like to put it to, and they go, I don't have 35 minutes. You've got a bit that's 35 minutes. And I'm like, well, that's just from years and years and years of doing it, Yeah.
It's almost the turn of going from like comic to sort of comic storyteller. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And you
I think I had somebody tell me that after this last special. He said, you've grown into such a good storyteller.
Yeah.
Well, the thing most people know me for is redneck jokes, which are one-liners. So somehow in my career, I've gone from one-liners to storytelling.
Yeah.
But I was always more of a storyteller. The redneck jokes, they were easy to remember. They were easy to retell. And people went, oh, that's that guy. That's the redneck guy. But even at the height of it, it was 5 minutes in the middle of a 2-hour show.
And are you ever annoyed when people, still just know you as the redneck guy? Or is that sort of like, that's the hook that built the deal?
It's the hook that built the deal.
Yeah.
But like even with this special, as I'm doing interviews, somebody said to me this morning, So how many new redneck jokes are in this special? And I'm like, dude, I hadn't done a redneck joke on stage in 15 years,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
It's funny how those things stick and people
but I
remember
will
it.
forever be that guy. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, he's the redneck guy. And,
Yeah.
God bless it. They remembered something. They remembered my name,
Yeah. Well, in these days when everyone's getting a super niche in their comedy or in their art form or whatever, we all kind of deal with that in some way, shape, or form. And it's more so just some to embrace and say, there's more. There's more if you want to see it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I feel. There's much more to me as a comic than that. If you choose to watch it, I'm not ashamed of it. I mean, there was some real funny stuff in there, but but there's some funny stuff in this other stuff too. So I mean, it is what it is. And you're right. I think we've become much more niche comedy now. And I tell people that. I said, I'm a mental image guy. I said, for me, whether it's creating a game or if it's creating your stand-up, or it's like driving around the mall at Christmas time. You're looking for a space nobody's in. Yeah. And you find that empty space and you fill it the best you can, And so it's like with you, I think most people came to you because you hit that upper Midwest thing that people knew so intimately. And then once they get to know you, they go, oh, that's there and that's good, but there's a lot more to Charlie than just that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's what you certainly hope for. Yeah. And then you hope you've got more in you than just that too. But yeah. No, I think it's something.
You try, right?
What's that?
You don't know till you try.
No.
I always told my kids, I said, I want you not only to fail, I want you to fail a lot, because when you're failing, you're pushing to the edge of the envelope to see what you can do. And so if you're failing, you're trying. You're not just stuck in this little comfort zone.
Yeah. My Nana used to say, and I forget what quote this is she was quoting, if a man's reach never exceeds his grasp, then what's a heaven for, that kind of thing. But, and that's a nice quote. But what that is, that's the bomb, That's when you go up on stage and just bomb. You just eat it. It happens every time, and you've got to embrace it. And then when you bomb in front of an auditorium, one joke bombs, you're not shaken by it. You're like, I've been here before.
Yeah. And I think part of what makes, more than anything I've ever done, what makes stand-up so captivating and so mysterious is you never get past that point. Like, if you installed carpet for 30 years, that's all you did, you would know when you got to a corner, this is the way you do a corner. This is the way you do a staircase. I know how to do this. This is the way you get the slack out. Mm-hmm. After 38 years, I still don't know what's funny. I might think it's funny. If you and I are walking into a club and I got a stack of note cards and you say, pick the 4 jokes that are going to work the best tonight, I would still, after 38 years, I'd still be dead wrong on 2 of them.
That is,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like the woman you can't figure out.
Yeah.
Which is what makes her captivating and interesting, is you kind of know her, but then she surprises you again. Because I'll have things that, like in my notebooks, I'm writing it and I put a star next to it. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a signature bit. And then I go in the club and I try it and it just bombs. And you're like, really?
Yeah.
That's not funny? Really? And then you'll have something where you think, this is just stupid. And you throw it out there and people are snotting on it.
I know.
Really? But I always trust the audience is right. They'll tell you what's funny. And it's part of the thing that I can't figure it out that makes it so interesting to me.
Yeah. Where do you go now? Like, do you do another comedy special? Is that what you're already working on? Do you go, you had a television show back in the day, but that was never really your thing, I don't think. But
no, I didn't enjoy that. That's maybe the only thing I ever did where I went, this isn't fun. I don't like this.
Yeah, it's a different beast. It's not
Well, it's just
stand-up.
life consuming. And I had little kids, and I'm reading stuff that as I'm reading it, I'm going, this isn't funny.
That's the worst. And you can't change it at that point? It was a Jeff Foxworthy show, wasn't it?
Well, but it was young in my career. And so they didn't even want me in the writing room. They would go, no, Jeff, this is TV. And I'm like, no, this is not funny. It's called the Jeff Foxworthy Show. And so, I do that all week, reading somebody else's words that I wasn't proud of. And then I would go out on Saturday and do stand-up saying what I wanted to say. And I was making more money anyway than I was for the whole week of doing that. I'm like, hell, I don't want to do that. I want to do this where I have my own voice.
Yeah. And you're your own control, and you can say, within your own time constraints, what's interesting, not in these like 8-minute blocks before a commercial break or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So are you working on your next stand-up show, or do you take a break and just exist for a while between these?
I'm always writing. I'm not writing as vigorously as I was getting ready for this Netflix thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, I go through waves. I will go through time periods where I think, crap, I'm never going to think of anything else funny. And then I will go through time periods where it's just pouring out of me. I'm just writing like a banshee, and then you hit that dry spot again where you're like, crap, I can't think of anything funny. And so, yeah, I'm still writing. I'm still playing with, and I always like to be able, when I go back to a place, if I don't have a new hour, at least you've got 20 or 30 new minutes.
Right.
That nobody's heard.
Yeah.
So, at this point in my career, I feel like, hey, if you've got 30, 40 minutes they haven't heard, and you can do a couple of greatest hits, everybody goes home happy, right?
Yeah. Do you lead with the new stuff?
Always.
Yeah.
Because it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, because I'm usually playing with it right before I go on. And so whatever I've been doing, I want to get, Ron's always like, why do you do the new stuff right up front? And he goes, I want to get them laughing and then try the new stuff. And I'm like, because it's fresh in my mind. And even if it bombs, like you said, I've been here before. I can dig myself out of this hole if I have to. I don't want to be in a hole, but if I am, I know how to dig myself out of it.
I almost like the energy of a joke bombing and having to save it on set, and I record all my sets, and that's some of my best jokes have been like a save from a bomb, and I don't know what it is. It might be that energy when you just have to be funny, like be funny or die, and I don't know what it is, but that's why.
But isn't that a fascinating thing? Because I always, no matter how much I'm writing, things always grow once they get to the stage. And so you'll be up there and throwing out this idea you kind of been playing with, and all of a sudden you go off on a tangent that you haven't ever had that thought before. It just comes to you on stage, and you're going through your thing, but your brain's going, holy crap, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's the best thing I've thought of yet. And you haven't had that thought. It just comes out on stage.
Yeah.
And then, and I don't record them, but I'm running off stage going, what was I talking about?
That's what I was saying.
What was I talking about? Doing that thing about my grandmother babysitting. What was I going to say?
You got to record them. That's the worst for me, is when I'm doing it and I'm like, oh, it's a great bit, and it's not being recorded. And then I get in my head about, like, I almost want to leave stage and write it down in those moments,
I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'll be right back. That might be a closer. Hang on. I got more stuff for you. Just give me 5 minutes.
Right.
So you still won't record your bits to keep those things, or
no? But I usually ask somebody to watch me, and all they have to do is give me a word or two.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. But I'm like you. Where did that come from? Because this is something I've really been thinking about, and I've never had this thought until I get on stage and I start talking about it, and then I go off on a tangent and go, holy crap, where'd that come from?
Well, this might sound like weird or whatever, but that's like that's how I know God exists. Is just like when I'm writing something or whatever, or on stage, and I'm like, and I don't want to make it seem like, oh, my words are from the divine or whatever, but just when you're in sort of the flow state or whatever, and you just get amazing stuff, and you're like, I don't think I thought of that, I don't think those were my words, and
Well,
it feels good,
well, and if we're made in his image, he's the creator,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
and
there you go. Yeah.
yeah,
That's the
create,
Midwest of me saying, but I'm not saying I'm like God or nothing, but
but it's creating something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the satisfaction is for us, is there wasn't a bit about this, and I created a bit about this, and it's good. And that's the thrill of it.
It is.
Yeah. To look back and go, oh man, that whole kidney stone thing, that's funny. I from the blank page to the Netflix special, I ground it out through there. Yeah, that's the satisfaction of it.
Yeah. And then hearing the laughs on top of it. I mean, that is just
Best.
the icing right
It's
there.
the best. It's like Leno still says, what else would you want to do? You make people laugh. What else would you want to do? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. What a great gift to be able to make people laugh.
It is a gift. It is a gift, man. And thank you for sharing yours. Your new special is hilarious. And I can't recommend people see it enough on Netflix. Do you have anything else you want them to do before we leave them?
No, I do have my game Relative Insanity over COVID. I wrote volume 2 of it.
Did you?
So it hits the stores this summer because I couldn't go on stage. I had to do something. So
and I gotta say again, that's where we first met, was Oshkosh, Wisconsin. You were doing a show. We met up after we played the game. It was a blast then. I played it with my family a bunch since, and I can't wait for the next version. That's going to be a good. Is it coming out before Father's Day or no?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like coming out the end of May or whatever. But it'll be on Amazon, Walmart, and all those things. And you and I hit it off right off the bat. I do. There is something, once you're not the new kid in this, I think what we do is I look at you and I go, he knows what it's like. He knows what it's like to wrestle with something, or he knows what it's like to bomb. And so it's a shared thing. It's like a mutual admiration society. It's like, but you and I just hit it off right off. I'm like, hell, this dude's funny.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And yeah, it is that thing. I don't know, but you can talk about bombing, but there's sort of this humility maybe that comes from just knowing
all the bad gigs,
yes.
All the nights where nobody's laughing and you're playing in these dumps.
Yeah.
He knows. He knows what this is like.
Or an open mic where 12 comedians are just staring at you like this, grinding their teeth. And if it's funny, they definitely won't laugh because they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know. They're mad that their bit's not going to be that good. No, I'll leave with this story, but I remember the first time I did the Manitowoc Minute bit, which would have been the reason I ever met you. That was the first bit that took off. I did it after a stand-up set at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles, up in the belly room, a bringer show, where I paid for the tickets and gave them away to my friends. They still didn't show up. And right before that set, I ran it at this open mic on Sunset, 3:00 in a coffee shop. So, perfect for comedy, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Half the people were just there trying to eat their scone, and silence, dead silence. I remember walking to the Comedy Store after, because I didn't want to pay for parking up there. And I went in like, oh, this is just going to go so awful. And I went up there and it crushed so hard that I decided to make the video, the Manitowoc Minute video. So it's like, if you listen to a bomb set, if you listen to that, especially at an open mic, it's just, if you have something, you got to have faith in it and just give it another chance. So
yeah, man. I tell people, trust your gut. Trust your gut. Is I mean, you may not know, how to fix a garbage disposal, but you know how to. So trust your gut. If it's not working, and I will even ask that, like on a Monday night, if I try something that I think is funny and it doesn't work, I'll just stop and go, did you not understand? Did I not set it up? And somebody goes, well, I didn't know what you were talking about. Okay, well, let me go work on that part of it.
You do the Men in Black thing, just forget everything I just said, click the light.
Yeah.
We'll try it again.
But I'm like, my gut tells me this is funny. I may not be executing it right, but there's something really funny in that. It was the same thing with that.
Yeah, exactly. This is fun, man. I wish we could keep going, but I'm going to respect your time and let you get back to it. But I would love to do it again.
I'm a big fan. I always love seeing you. I always love talking to you. So
right back at you. Grew up watching your stuff, and it's been a joy to get to know you personally. So I appreciate
that's just a nice way to say you're really old, and I appreciate it.
I don't want to leave you. I'm trying to get an invite on one of your arrowhead hunting deals. So let me leave you on a good note or something.
You can come with me. Everybody that comes with me ends up doing it. They end up getting fascinated by it. And you live in a good part of the country, and you're from a good part of the country for it.
Have you gone in the Midwest at all?
And I have. I mean, and there's some beautiful stuff there. So
nice. All right. Well, I'm gonna do a little research around here. Find a hot spot.
Yeah, find us a hot spot.
I'll invite you up. I'll scout it out first. I'll do the legwork here. Okay.
You do the legwork, and I'll come out and give you the finer points of it. So
that sounds great. Well, and finer points. Nice pun. Arrowheads. Yeah, perfect. This has turned into a Midwest goodbye, Jeff. So I'm going to let you go, my man.
All right, buddy. Thank you, Charlie. Right. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Appreciate you.
You Bye-bye. Too.